Hello, everybody. I can't tell you how excited I am to see everybody. Look, we have over 100 people here so far, and I believe we're going to have a few more. I know that they're still working out some details, but I am really excited to be talking to you at this Monday, September 13th, and this is the beginning of our fall and winter semester. And the reason why I'm really excited about this is that the board has really been focusing on, like I mentioned in my note, about how to get us back into rehearsing together in person, but also towards performing together in person too. And so our goal is to try to work towards a performance in a normal time, potentially in January, and work on this repertoire that we actually had programmed at the beginning, before pandemic and whatnot. So this is a rehearsal period where we're going to be focusing on 2 works at first, but then going to potentially add on some more depending on how our rehearsals go, whether we can transition to in-person sooner than later, or we want to perform some of the repertoire that we worked over the pandemic time. So of course, we're looking at Mendelssohn's Die erste Walpurgisnacht, and then Brahms' Schicksalslied. Now, also on this program was originally scheduled to be Zemlinsky's Psalm 13, which is a fantastic work. Actually, all 3 of these works are works that are not performed as often. The Brahms, of course, is probably more well-known, but the Zemlinsky isn't performed very much, and the Mendelssohn, the music is actually in several different pieces, co-opted for part of Midsummer Night's Dream, the ballet, as well as used in some other works. But this is, of course, the original, Die erste Walpurgisnacht. So our goal is during this semester to actually work towards, again, actually learning these pieces in entirety. And so we're performance shape. Now, this is very different than what we've been doing in Zoom, especially during the summer. So in the summer sessions, if you remember, or if you participated in those are really just a dive into the pieces to get to know them a little bit, to feel like you're, tasting the various repertoire of a certain composer, or getting a feel for certain pieces within a certain genre, like quilt songs, or whatnot. And the semester before that, we were looking at repertoire that we might have been known before, like when we worked on the Four Requiem, or we worked on some other repertoire that is not necessarily focused on details, but more just connecting to this repertoire that's very familiar with us. Now, this semester, of course, we are actually going back to what we normally do in rehearsal. That is to take fantastic repertoire, that's symphonic choral, that has full orchestra plus all of you as singers, and work towards pieces that are great masterworks, whether they're well known or not. And so again, this semester is going to be focused on the Mendelssohn Die erste Walpurgisnacht, the Brahms Schicksalslied, and then potentially the Zemlinsky Psalm 13, which was originally programmed. Or we will transition to some repertoire that we learned during or we sang through during the pandemic time, like the Four Requiem, and maybe work that up towards a performance. Either that, or we did Brahms Requiem at the very, very beginning, actually. But we decided to shelve the Te Deums, the Arvo Pärt and the Bruckner, until we have a full semester where we start off in person. So what our plan for today is to talk a little bit about the pieces. And I'm joined, of course, with Paul, who is our accompanist. And if you don't know Paul, he's amazing, but you'll get to see him later on as we rehearse. But we thought we got a couple comments from people saying that it's such a different experience performing together with people than it is in your own home, right? If you crack a note or you sing a completely different wrong note in your house, maybe your cat will give you a look, but nobody will, there are people who are worried about judgment or whatnot. And as I mentioned in the email, first 2 things, this is BCCO, right? And no matter what your background is in voice, the goal is that everybody has an artistic voice And it's coming together that we can achieve all these things, no matter how you feel, if you're having a bad day, if you're having a great day, if you're a professional singer, if you've never sung before in your entire life, or anywhere in between. The whole point is that when we come together to make music, magical things happen. And it's not, it's about taking that step towards community that makes it powerful, not worried about your individual voice. Everybody's voice is important. But the second thing is that every single musician out there, as they've been going back to performing together, has noticed a transition. So with the orchestras I've been working with, they say the same thing. Whoa, this is actually really different. During Zoom time, during smaller chamber groups, they had a different set of skills. And coming back, they have to reacclimate to what it's like to be an orchestra, what it's like to sing together, perform together. And so that transition is going to be present for us too. It's going to take a few times when we're in person to say, oh yeah, that's right. This is what singing together is like. This is what my voice is like. This is, it's going to be a transition just like any other musician going back into a group. And so to assist with that transition, we have Carrie Hennessy, who is a phenomenal soprano that performs not only in the entire Bay Area, but all over the world and whatnot. And she's sung with BCCO several times before, but she's going to be giving a little bit of a choral boot camp to get our voices back into shape so we can feel as physically comfortable, as mentally comfortable coming back to performing together. So I can't see her because she's not spotlighted here, but she is here, I promise you. And after I just go over the pieces that we're going to be studying a little bit, then she's going to take us into the next part of the rehearsal, which will be actually starting to use our voice and not only just singing in Zoom or in Jack Trip, but actually preparing ourselves to sing together in person again. And then, of course, after she does her session, then we're going to go back to normal rehearsal and actually look at a couple sections of the Mendelssohn and the Brahms to get us ready for what it's going to be, what we're going to start rehearsing, where are we going to breathe together, even pronunciations or whatnot, all the normal good hedge work that we do for choral singing. So I want to talk about these two pieces very quickly first before we get started. And we have these beautiful Karas edition scores. And so hopefully you have these, but just like any other rehearsal, you want to make sure that you have your pencils out, because during the rehearsal today, we're going to be going through details, including where we take breaths, musical ideas that we want to bring out. But there are two pieces that we're looking at. One is the Schicksalslied of Brahms and one is the Mendelssohn. And I want to start with the Mendelssohn first. The first Walpurgis Night. And this is actually a pretty interesting piece because he was Mendelssohn's most of Mendelssohn's works were in his young period because he died quite early when he was 35. But this was written actually pretty early, even still, when he was 23. And most of his mature works, we say, started from age 17 on. So this is really still in the early part. But, you know, the text is by Goethe, and it talks about Druids versus Christians. And Walpurgis Night is signals the return of spring. It's like May 1st or whatnot. And the days before that oftentimes were signified by, you know, devils and spirits and whatnot, sort of are like our, you know, like All Hallows Eve or the night before Halloween, or just Halloween itself, right? And so it's actually a pretty funny piece because Mendelssohn's viewpoint is from the Druids' point of view, where they're not allowed to celebrate this day, this May Day and whatnot. And so as a trick, they actually pretend and dress up like demons and whatnot, create a whole bunch of ruckus and sounds to scare away the Christians so they can celebrate their, you know, their May Day in peace. And so it's a really, really interesting, fun work. It's got several different components to it, but it is very, very energetic, and many, many people thought this was one of Mendelssohn's greatest works, including Berlioz. And Berlioz, as we've talked about before, is kind of a crazy composer and loved the macabre. And so I think these ideas of the mysterious and the supernatural or whatnot really connected with Berlioz. But he said it was one of the best pieces that Mendelssohn composed. So I want to play a little bit. This is from the beginning. Let me just make sure that when I share screen, I'm going to open up the Mendelssohn. Die erste Walpurgisnacht. And I'm going to zoom, and what I'm going to do is share the screen, but with the sound, optimize for a video clip, and share Mendelssohn. So this is a little bit of the beginning, and Mendelssohn starts off with this very, very long, oh, well, not very, he starts off with two sections that signify the tumult of the seasons before spring, and then of course some music to represent spring. But I just want to listen to the opening, because for Mendelssohn, we often talk about the idea that because he lived such a privileged life, that it was really hard for him to connect to really tragic or terrifying music. If you sung Elijah, you know that, you know, when they're having their big duel, like which God is greater or whatnot, the music that he has is it doesn't have as much direct dark depth. But this music is actually quite terrifying in some aspects. And it still goes on for quite a while. You know, again, it still has that all that huge energy of Mendelssohn, but with this constant turmoil. In sections, you can hear the strings going in the bass while the melody is going through. It's really fantastic. Let me skip ahead just to some of the when spring arrives. Let me just make sure it gets to the right place. and spring has sprung. And so this is music that you might have actually heard in the ballet Midsummer Night's Dream. The ballet version of this, you steal some of this music actually for this. It's really, really fun. I want to play one other section for you here. This is when the Druids are creating a ruckus to try to scare away the Christians. But the fun thing is to listen to the percussion and listen to the way that the singers in this particular chorus are actually approaching singing this this music. They become very percussive themselves, and it becomes very, very short, and we say it has a lot of articulation to it. But listen to this. Mit frischem Mut uns unsere Pflicht erfüllen. Aber lasst mit frischem Mut uns unsere Pflicht erfüllen. Aber lasst mit frischem Mut uns unsere Pflicht erfüllen. Mit frischem Mut uns unsere Männer hier. Skip ahead of a second. I got the wrong time here, but let's try it.
Kommt mit Sacken und mit Gabeln und mit Glut und Klapperstöcken lernen wir bei Nächtlein durch die engen Felsenstrecken. Kommt mit Sacken und mit Gabeln und mit Glut und Klapperstöcken lernen wir bei mächtigen Weiden durch die hehren Felsenstrecken. Kommt mit Sacken und mit Gabeln und mit Glut und Klapperstöcken lernen wir bei mächtigen Weiden durch die hehren So that's just, it's so fantastic. Now, if you know Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream Overture, then the fairies and all the sounds that the instruments make sound like fairies' wings and the sort of virtuosic, very, very light flying through the air. It's very, very reminiscent of that music. But the fun part is that, you know, there's cymbals in this. And we have to remember that like cymbals, Beethoven 9, but before that, they really weren't used. And cymbals, bass drums, triangles, or whatnot, they all come from Turkish influences because Turkish armies used to be stationed in Vienna, and they would have these decorative instruments or whatnot, and this big pole that had a lot of bells and clanging things on it. And they used to hit it down on the ground. And so all these composers, especially Mozart, that's right, Rondo alla Turca, or the Turkish March, or the Beethoven's, the Ruins of Athens, there's a Turkish march in there too. Obviously, Beethoven Ninth Symphony. There was, they used cymbals, instruments of war, bass drums, snare drums, or whatnot, to imitate these Turkish armies. And so Mendelssohn steals some of this to try to imitate the sounds of cacophony that these druids are trying to make and scare away the Christians. So it's a really fun piece, but we take on as a chorus this sort of same sort of virtuosic singing that the instruments do. And clarinets, they'd have entire auditions only on this music. Actually, most instruments do. Violins do too, violas do. But we're gonna obviously work our way up to that too, because again, this is a very fun piece, and it is sort of with a wink that we perform this work, because again, it is not as serious as some of the other works out there. It really is like the Druids playing a trick almost on the Christians, in which most other instances of Druids and Christians interacting together usually ends with bloodshed. This is more sort of like games, and sort of it comes across a little bit more frivolously. So this is a really fun work that we're going to get into a lot. There's a lot of meat for the chorus to sing, but there is, of course, a lot for the soloists as well that just come through and sing various aspects of it. Let's look at the Brahms Schicksalslied. And Schicksalslied is a work that he was really influenced by the text. But the fun thing about this is that he didn't like the ending of the text. Hölderlin is who wrote the tracks, Friedrich Hölderlin. But it talks about the gods and how idyllic their life is, how tough humans have it, and then it ends. And so Brahms, disagreeing with this, had to figure out a new ending. And he sat there and he just like, I'm not quite sure how to do this. He wrote to several of his colleagues and said, you know what, I'm having a lot of difficulty at the end. And it starts off with the idyllic music of the gods. If you notice, if you want to look at your music for here, we're on page 6 in the score, and the altos basically sing on top of this line. And then everybody comes. And you can see the text. We are really talking about the gods in the sky and how, everything on heaven and in above is idyllic, right? Ye tread on pathways of light through fields of azure, spirits beyond the skies. And you talk about how wonderful everything is. Now, if you turn to page 13,
turn to page 13, where it says Allegro. All of a sudden, this represents the human experience. I can't play it. Da, 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 da. But you can see we have been fated to find on earth no repose. They vanish, they falter, our suffering, sorrowing brothers, you know. You know, it becomes very, very tumultuous. And if you go through to the end of this, there's some beautiful, beautiful writing. But if you go through towards page, let's say page 30, the unknown lures us below. And the music, you know, he said he didn't know how to, because the text ends so depressingly, how humans have difficult experience while the gods above almost like laugh at us. But you know, it just turns very darkly. So what he did is he actually added music that completely changes the content of the text. He said himself, I don't believe that we're fated to live. Oh, I could stop the chair. We're fated to, I don't think we're fated to have a tragic existence. So he took the music from the beginning and he said, I want this to end with optimism, with hope, and he ended up with something in C major. Music as the beginning, but in a completely different key. So Brahms, again, mirroring the idea of the Brahms Requiem, right, is that, you know, we should comfort those, that our existence on earth is important. And there's a lot of parallels between this and the Brahms Requiem. But he said to himself, like I mentioned to his colleagues, I didn't know how to end this without changing the content and aligning better with how I feel our existence on earth is supposed to be. So both these works are really fantastic because they have very significant orchestral coloring that changes the context from the Mendelssohn, starting from the tragedy of the windy weather of the past that changes into spring, and sort of that orchestration that we tap into and we become like instruments ourselves. The Walpurgisnacht, like we are bass drums and cymbals too. And of course, the Schicksalslied, which has the opening and the ending, which show how we can take part in comfort too, but that we show and sing both the calming music of the tranquil gods and also the human existence. So I think it's going to be a great contrast of works to do, but
we're here to sing. We're not here just to listen to things and just do a program notes or whatnot. So like I mentioned at the beginning of rehearsal, our goal for this semester is to get us back into singing together and work on repertoire that we're going to perform. And so the rehearsal is going to be very different than our Zoom rehearsals before. It's going to be working on details. It's working in more deliberate and refined and slower, obviously, too. But also, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable getting back into singing shape. And as I mentioned, we have a phenomenal voice teacher, soprano, performer, actress, everything in Carrie Hennessy, who's joining us for what she calls a choral boot camp. And she's going to be here for the next 3 rehearsals, not only today for half an hour, but another week, next week for half an hour. And then in what might be, we're not quite sure yet, what might be our last rehearsal on Zoom. We're going to try to see if we can get into person before, after this. But she's going to do, on her 3rd week, a little bit of a longer session to get us back in shape. But Carrie, it's so great to see you.
Yay! Hi, everybody.
I'm going to transfer to you, and I'm going to take myself off of Spotlight.
All right.
Yours.
Great. Hey, everyone. So we're wanting to get back in shape so we can sing in person again. I just came off the most intense summer I've had in a very long time, singing 2 operas back to back, leading roles. The first opera's in the Bay Area. And I have to say, I put myself through some of this boot camp. So some of the things that we're going to go through today and next week and the week after are all things that I was doing for myself, because during the pandemic, I didn't sing so much. I didn't feel like it. It took me a little while to sort of get myself back into, oh, that's right. I actually need to sing to express. I actually need to do this. Can everybody hear me okay? Also, by the way, we're all good? Great. If it's weird, throw something in the chat. I'll pay attention. So some of the things that we're going to cover today, we're going to really get into the details about breath. It seems like we should all know, but for some reason, singing breaths feels sort of elusive sometimes, where we think, oh, we need this big breath, and for some reason, I don't have enough breath for this phrase or that phrase. So we're going to get into really looking at the mechanism and feeling what it feels like to engage it in a released way, so that we're not taking too big a breath, we're not over compressing, we're staying open. So we're going to look at the mechanism in a different way today and sort of just explore a little bit together. And I do encourage, once I start my little presentation, you'll see that really I want you to ask questions in the chat and we'll address them along the way. Great. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get going. So choral boot camp. Going to get in shape to sing in person. Today's talk is about breath. And of course, you guys know the Zoom room rules. You've been doing this all throughout the pandemic. If you see a little guy with his little poop, poop, poop question, use the chat box, make comments. And the idea is we want to make sure that we're just having fun exploring this. Oops. Resume share. Bye. There we go. So I like to talk about in my voice lessons, talking about the breath mechanism from the bottom up, that we sing from the bottom up, all the way down to our toes. So the activator part is the breath. Like that's the engine, the fuel for all the things we're doing. All of that fuel needs to move through the vibrator, the vocal folds that sit in the vocal tract. And then it goes through the resonator. So we've got the vocal tract, the palate, the nasal passages, so that everything can really ring out. Today's goals, just get a better understanding of the vocal mechanism. We want to make sure that we have, oop, we're not seeing the screen share. Uh-oh. Oh, it's still loading.
Hey, Carrie, this is Christian. It was working when you first turned on screen sharing for about 3 seconds, and then the page went black. So you could try restart.
Yeah, let me stop the share and restart it. Oops, go back. Oh, there's something wrong. Hold, please. One more try. Yeah, my Google just crashed. That's fun. Let me try this again. How are we now?
I'm going to talk to you because it's easier. When you first turned on screen share, we saw the slide selector and the slide that you selected. And then when you chose the slide you wanted to show, the screen went black.
Oh,
So if nothing else, you can go back to the preview screen that shows the slides with the selected one in big.
Oh, that's true. My screen share is paused. Why is my screen share paused?
Good question.
I didn't pause it, and I cannot resume it. It says resume share, but it won't let me resume it.
All right, I got another thought. Is yours is it a PowerPoint deck, or what kind of a file is it?
It's Google.
Well, talk us through it instead of showing it to us.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Let me try it one more time. There's one key. There's a video that I really want everyone to see. Let me see if I can try it one more time. So that you can see?
Yes, we can see that.
Cool. How about that?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. So we will just do it this way. Great. So I'm just going to I'm going to stay in Google and out of sort of the Zoom. If this still works.
That works. Yep.
Great. Super. So our goals today is we are going to try to better understand the breath mechanism, build some body awareness, because there's like, we can sit and talk about it, but if we don't feel it ourselves, it doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't mean anything. And I want to leave some tangible homework exercises that you can do during mundane tasks at home. So you can really start building the stamina up. You can really start gaining an understanding of how your breath works. So inspiration, the word, means two things, and singing requires both of them. The process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially something creative. We need to be inspired by this music that Ming just presented. Some wonderful inspiration and playfulness and play, like the voice playing instruments, sounding like instruments and being playful. And then, of course, drawing in breath, literally in inhalation. So anytime we're working with breath, I want everyone to take a second, because sometimes we just want to get right to the singing, don't we? And especially now, be really aware as we come back in person, it's going to be really tempting to just like dig in and start singing. And that's when the vocal folds are going to say, no, thank you, and I refuse. And they're going to get real tired on you real fast. So what I would ask you to do is to make sure that you take time to get your alignment set. So we want to make sure that we are paying attention to the breath mechanism and making sure that we start with our alignment. So everybody get in your seat. I want you to feel your feet in the ground. And I want you to picture them like all four corners, big toe, baby toe, both sides of the heel, right in the ground. And in fact, push on your feet a little bit and engage your thigh muscles. Just so you can feel that everybody is at the bottom of the, like those are your pillars for the breath. So we want to make sure that we're activating those muscles before we sing. I see some of you standing up and playing with this. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And even if you're sitting, you know, you often have to sit during rehearsals. This is a good time to sort of mess around what it feels like to feel your feet in the ground, activate your thigh muscles, feel your seat in your seat. Start with that. Just give it a little gravity so you can feel all of that. And then I want you to sense from the base of your spine all the way up. I want you to feel like each vertebrae is getting a little bit more released, like the compression, the vertebrae aren't sitting together with gravity, but there's just a little paper thin bit of air in between each vertebrae, which means you're going to feel really heavy in the bottom and you're going to start to feel light in your back. And do that until your head almost feels like it's balancing on your spine. And you can see from literally every picture of me singing with BCCO, I look like this. I'm not catching flies. I'm sure it's a lovely ah vowel or something happening, but we need to get used to feeling that our jaw can release on its hinge when we're breathing. So now once you feel that, put your hand beneath your belly button. Leave your jaw open and take in some air through your mouth and your nose. Do that again. I want you to see if you can really feel the air coming in all the way to your hand beneath your belly. It's also, somebody said they felt like that I was working with today, they felt like they had been meditating for hours just by taking a few of these breaths. And I think especially during this pandemic time, this is a great exercise just to get everybody nice and relaxed. So now I want to show you, this is my very favorite breath video. Don't be afraid, it's in French. That's okay. You don't need to speak any French, none at all. It's 3 minutes of gold. And what it is it's an animation of breath. It's not necessarily breath for singing, but we're going to talk about some of the things that we hear in choral singing, especially we hear things like drop your belly, expand your rib cage, sing to your diaphragm, use your diaphragm. And so sometimes that terminology gets a little confusing if we don't actually know what we're feeling for. So I want to encourage you, if you want to turn off your video, it's okay. Or leave it on. If you want to start just feeling the parts that it's going to show in this video, I encourage that tactile style of learning. So I'm going to start this video and I want to make sure, Christian, if you're out there, please let me know if it plays okay, since everything else is wonky.
Yep, we can see it moving. Yep. Although we don't hear sound if you're expecting that to be there. It's
No.
not.
No sound, huh?
Let's see, you might have to share computer audio when you share your screen first.
Oh, I checked that and it was going. You know what? I'm not going to worry about it. Let's just watch. I want you mostly to watch for as the rib cage is going out, I want you to watch for that huge diaphragm muscle that lives at the bottom of the rib cage and opens it up. So I'll talk you through it. So it's talking about the 4 diaphragms. There's a diaphragm in your head, in the muscles here, the cervical. This is the one we know about, the thoracic diaphragm. And my favorite, the pelvic diaphragm. This is why everybody says breathe all the way to your seat, breathe all the way to your pelvis, because the air, when it opens the diaphragm, that we know the thoracic, all of our organs need some place to go. So we need that pelvic diaphragm to open. Look at how big that is. Just notice, take a breath, feel at the bottom of your rib cage, and sense your thoracic diaphragm opening. And you can see how the pelvic diaphragm has to open and the pelvis has to tilt as the air comes in. And you see the psoas muscle going up in the front of the pelvis and all of the back muscles. Why stretching is so important before we sing. And look at that cervical diaphragm utilizing and opening the top ribs. And all of the intercostal muscles in between each rib. Ooh, that's my favorite part. Ooh, I want to go back. That's my favorite part. Oh, I stopped it too soon. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? So we've got the intercostal muscles working like crazy. All of those muscles in between each rib are really working. This one, the abdominal muscle. Did you see how this muscle right here, take a look at that. This abdominal muscle, often we hear about singing breath, drop your belly or let your belly, breathe to your belly. And what's really happening is that abdominal muscle is stretching because it's like opening an umbrella. It's the resistance that allows the thoracic diaphragm to truly open. I had never thought about it like that until I saw this video a few years ago. It's not just about dropping the belly, but really expanding this muscle down, this abdominal muscle down, so the diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm, can truly buoy that air. So I think for me, that was sort of mind-boggling. I'd never thought of it like that before. So let's just take a couple of breaths. So get in your alignment. And I want everybody just to take a second, put your hands on the bottom of your rib cage, because I want you to feel how that diaphragm is working. So it's not necessarily that you're going to sing to your diaphragm, but it expands as the air comes in. So just take a second and take a few breaths. Blow it all out. Let it in. And this time, blow it all the way out. And I want you to let it in and see if you can also feel that abdominal muscle stretching down and out. So everybody, blow everything out. Let it in. Can you feel that? I'm going to show you. I'm not afraid of showing my belly. So everybody blow all your air out. I want you to see what this looks like. Here it comes in. And with that, I'm ready to sing. I don't need to take in a full tank of air. The tank of air is already there for me because that musculature was already ready to have it. The nice thing is with that easy intake, the vocal folds just close over them and they're ready to sing. If we try to take too much air, that's when they get agitated. So this is a coordination after not singing with people for some time that we're going to need to get back in shape again, because you're going to be later marking breath marks and you're going to be needing to do this together so that nobody's taking the kinds of breath that it can actually damage the vocal folds. So let's do a little practice together. So we did the first one already, finding the bottom of the ribs, hand under your belly button, drop your belly. We just did that. So now I want to add this. There's another part of our breathing mechanism that sometimes we forget about, and that's our back. So now in your seat, I want you to just take your alignment and lean it about 45 degrees with your knees sort of apart so your belly has a place to drop in between your legs. And take a few breaths to your back. At the same time that you're breathing to your back, you should feel your belly expand in between your legs. And it can be in your, just through your nose. It can be through your nose and mouth. But this leaned over position should help you really sense that that breath goes all the way around. Sometimes when we're singing, especially if we're holding music and focusing on the conductor, which is exactly what you should be doing, we're so focused on all of our energy forward that we forget that we have all of this stuff back here to help us. So now from this position, I know you all do these exercises, hissing. So I want you to just pulse 4 hisses and then 1 long hiss with me. And we ready? Get in your alignment, lean in, let the air in, 4 hisses, long. Do that again and see if you can really access your back while you're doing this hissing exercise. And alignment, lean in, and good. This exercise is a great one to get that coordination back. How to gently use all of your real estate, all of the diaphragmatic real estate. And you'll notice in that video, and yes, that YouTube video, when you watch it, it talks about 4 diaphragms, one in the cranium, which we would kind of relate to making sure we feel that dome in the back, that sighing, oh, oh, where everything sort of opens up, opening the nasal passages. We've got the cervical diaphragm that has everything to do with everything in the vocal tract and how everything opens, the thoracic and the pelvic. So it's very interesting. I'd never thought of it that way, but of course they're all diaphragms. Not that I'm a medical doctor, but I agree with him. It's just very interesting to think of it in that way and how they all work together simultaneously. So when we breathe in, all 4 of them are working at the same time. So as you're doing these exercises, you can sort of notice that as well, so that we're not just focusing on just breathing here, but we're breathing our whole body. I've heard Ming say that, breathe with your whole body, sing with your whole body. This is where we start. The other thing, my favorite sort of exercise to get my breath back going is to use the letter V. So what happens is when you use the letter V, it builds resistance and helps you really feel your breath. So if I feel like for some reason I can't breathe quite right, or it's maybe I didn't get enough sleep the night before, or I'm tired and it's just taking a long time to get things moving, the letter V tends to get me really going. So do this with me. Like you're kind of turning a motor over. And there are a couple of questions in the chat. So we should be feeling an expansion in our back. Yes, that's the goal. And if you can just feel the ribs, that's completely fine. Jan had a question saying, I mostly feel the ribs expanding. That's great. So now take that idea and use the V sound and see if you can feel all the way around. There's a gentle expansion of the rib cage as we use that V. So instead of saying and shutting off the air, we want to see if we can utilize the rib cage out to play with buoying that rib cage out. And this too is a great way to start building stamina in the breath so that it gets easier to sing those long phrases and so that we can remember not to collapse. And next time we're going to put some vocal exercises with that little V exercise, which will be fabulous. It really helps. In fact, do that. Just random notes, any old notes you choose, and see if you can keep the pitches going while you use that V. You should be able to feel that expansion all the way around, and even some expansion here. Not this way, but this way. It'll feel a little bit different in everybody's body. That's one thing we know for sure. That's why breath is really difficult to teach for singing, because everybody senses it so differently. And when it's really working, the other trick is we don't feel much. So when the breath is going really, really well, and all the phrases are coming off very easily, and long phrases are easy, that's when the breath, we don't feel so much. So it's hard to sort of It's elusive. So that's why we have these exercises to go, nope, I feel this. Nope, I feel this. Good, 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 good. So now your homework. Homework, because I want next time to have a little moment of being able to unmute ourselves and talk a little bit about what you played with and how that helped. I'll send out those 3 little breath exercises if it's useful. But what I want everybody to do before you go to bed, I want you to do that grounding exercise we did, where we did from the feet, we felt our thighs, we felt our hips get loose, and then the spine came up nice and out. We bobbled our head and we released our jaw. So before you go to bed tonight, do that. And then observe your breath from there. Just take an extra minute of winding down. Put your hands on your ribs. Put your hands below your belly button and observe for several breaths. Then when you lie in bed, do the same. Just lie in bed and observe your breath. Perhaps you'll feel, if you have a nice firm bed, perhaps you'll feel your back part of your ribs really breathe into your bed. Perhaps you'll really see that belly expansion. You'll see that abdominal muscle expand as the air comes in. So do that. And then I want you to watch that video without my commentary, but with the French commentary, just to sort of, as you're doing that at some point during this week, watch the video while you're breathing so you can really feel and see. So we've got several different sort of inputs of learning: tactile, we're visual, we're doing it also. And I think that's really important in breath work, especially to really be able to sense it, touch it, feel it, see it, and having it in 3D and having them pull away parts and put parts back together is really fascinating. So we've got that before bed exercise, then reverse it when you get up in the morning. So set your alarm clock 1 minute sooner and lie in bed for a second and just observe your breath. And then stand up and get in your alignment and observe your breath again. And I think the best thing about this is that it starts your day and ends your day with really nuanced observation of the breath being the key, and really taking time to pay attention to it makes a huge difference in how we practice. Great. So that's your homework before we meet next week. Any questions? Any more questions before you guys get down to the brass tacks of marking breaths and such? Great. Ming, anything else? Do you have any questions?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Carrie. It's so great to see you.
Yay!
Is that a drum kit behind you?
It is.
Speaking of cymbals and excitement and everything, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, Carrie, we'll see you next time. Carrie's going to start off rehearsal next week, and so she'll be here at 7, and so we can get right into discussion about your homework and the portions for the next phase of getting ready and in shape and everything. So thank you again, Carrie.
Thank you.
See you later. I'm going to transition into Jack Trip. So I want to make sure that that works at that point. So hold on just a second, and then we have to do technical transfer so you can hear me speaking from Jack Trip. So hold on just 1 second. So now that you have your good support
Ming, they're not hearing you in Zoom.
Good. Let's take a break there. So, a couple things. If you're on Zoom, Zoom should be working now. But if you're on Jack Trip, don't forget to mute your computer. So we don't get the echoes. So again, if you're on Jack Trip, mute your computer so that there's only one input of sound. Okay. That's. There's one person left. Okay. Any case, let's go back to our warm up. If you're on Jack Trip, please mute your computer.
You want to tell us how to do that?
You turn off the sound to your computer. So turn the volume of your computer's speaker all the way down to nothing. Okay. There's one person left. Hey,
Wow. That's cool. Wow.
we should try singing around and see what's up.
I think anything we sing will be around.
Lisbon, Bob, are you muted?
Yes, we are.
Christian just posted something. Just making sure it stays at the bottom. Okay. Let's try. End. Maybe we just try Zoom for now. Everybody, if you're on Jack Trip, have you muted your computer? Test. Anybody? Yeah, still there. Test. That's so funny. I'm actually not frozen in time. I'm just very still.
Test. 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 Still echoing? Still echoing? Yes. Still echoing? Yes. Still echoing? Yes. Test. 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 Is this better? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? The echo is much softer, much softer, much softer, much softer. Or was. Or was. Test. There it goes. Okay. So, woohoo! Thank you, Christian and David and Ignacio, anybody who helped out, everybody. Let's go through. Let's go through. There. Here we go. So we're going to do a warm-up still. Nice and even. And nice and energetic for each one, a little bit buoyant and bouncy. Here we go. And ya 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 nice energy. That's it. That's exactly. Excellent. Great. So we're going to skip ahead to the Brahms, Schicksalslied. And whatever edition you have, we're going to be starting at bar 29. 29. So take out your Schicksalslied. Turn to bar 29, and this is all the altos singing. And then on bar 34, all of us start to sing together again. And so, Paul, I'm going to actually play just because I don't want another factor for this for now.
Sure.
But I heard you pretty clearly. Do you want to just try playing bar 34 for a second?
Bar 34?
Yeah.
It's a little bit soft. I think I'm going to play for now just so we can go on with this. But I want everybody to sing from bar 29, the alto line, and then sing your own part on bar 34. Okay? I'm going to start 2 bars before bar 29, so bar 27. And we sing it on ooh, and I want it to be the most smooth and clear and pristine. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go on ooh. Everybody. Excellent. Really, really nice. Now, how many of us, raise your hands if you can, probably can't see, could make it through bar 29 through 33 on one breath? So that's not possible, basically. And we want to make sure that we still maintain a very smooth line. And so you can take breaths wherever you want, except for the most natural places, like in bar 31 between the 2 words. You want to not take a breath there because that's where everybody's going to want to take a breath. And so we're going to have too many people do that. Let's just try the alto lining with everybody singing again. And what I want you to do is I don't want you to think about any jumps. I want you to think like the music is completely horizontal, that you don't have to worry about these jumps at all. Let's try it from the beginning. Bar 29, everybody singing the alto part. 2, 3, breathe. Nice. Really beautiful. Now, let's start from bar 34. And whatever your line is, we want to maintain that same serene legatissimo, which means very, very smooth. Basses, tenors, sopranos, and altos. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bad. So for some reason, when we went to 4-part, I heard some people going, no, 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 which is not very smooth, is it? You want to make sure that your consonants and your vowels are the same. Paul, let's try with you. Starting from bar 34. Excellent volume. And what I want to do is I want you to be smoother than the piano. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. Now, altos, even though you're going to have a lot of syllables and notes, pick up to bar 37. No, 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 no. I want you to still feel like you're just undulating, like they're just beautifully smooth waves. Let me hear the basses and tenors alone. Sempre dolce. Here, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not bad. Make sure it's a new, not new, but a pure oo vowel. Now, tenors and altos. Listen, don't sing, but listen. Breath. So right in that breath there. Sopranos and basses will not have the same breath. Bar 36, the third bar where all four voices sing together. Basses, you're going to sing a quarter note and then cut off the consonant. Liegt auf weichem Boden. And then sopranos, you're also going to make that a quarter note. You are not going to make bar 36 a half note, then cut off with everybody else. Okay? You're also going to make it similar. Oh, sorry. I wrote the wrong one. Sorry, sopranos. You are going to sing the full half note. It's just the basses that are off. Basses, we want to hear you very clearly on the third beat. Can we hear all four voice parts starting from bar 34? With Paul. Ready? Paul, why don't you feel free to play the orchestra accompaniment and leave the, let me hear if we can hear all the individual voices of the vocalists sing coming through.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, wait. No. That is Zoom singing. I'm going to join the train after we take a breath, right? Let's try that together. We do a nice long count off so you can breathe together. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Not bad. Now, can we sing it lovingly? Right now, it feels a little bit academic. Let's try it together, right? Has a different feel than new. You're really making accents on it, and we want to make it loving and caressing, like there's no accents whatsoever. With Paul. 1, 2. No, the same place we've been starting for the last 20 times. Bar 34. 1, 2.
Answer him.
I packed your bag.
That's it. Basses, everybody else, breathe. And stop. Yeah, good. Make sure that the last note is a full 2 beats. Can we go on to this next section? But first, I want to play it for you. Starting from bar 39, right where you stopped singing. Whoa, that's a surprising chord, isn't it? So that chord, where it says molto pianissimo, molto piano, you're gonna change the color, not only of the harmony, but also of our voices too. Okay, so the first text that you sang was "Ye tread on pathways of light," but at rehearsal C, which is bar 41, soft, balmy breezes lightly fan your white robes. Let's start right on it before we try the transition. So Paul, can you give them their notes at rehearsal C? And let's read this together. Again, don't think about the leaps. We're going to try to make everything as gentle as possible on new. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Three, 4. Not bad, not bad. Now, children, of course, they do, the brains are sort of plastic. They're constantly growing and moving. But the biggest impediment for adults when you teach them music lessons is their own voice in their head saying, oh, that sounds terrible. Oh, that sounds terrible. Or you see kids and they're like, squeak, squeak, squeak. Wasn't that great? Right? And so this is our first time running through this. If you got every single note right, that's fantastic. If you got every single note wrong, that's perfectly fine. It's your first time through this. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to sing through this at C, but I want you to focus on not only what Paul hears, but I want you to focus on the smoothness. The notes are going to come, but I want you to figure out on the smoothness, because on bar 42, for instance, there's a dotted rhythm and music sounds like this. But those dotted rhythms and those offbeats, suddenly we sang it like jazz. Do, 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 2, 3, do, do, do. And that goes against our sort of smooth singing, okay? This is smooth jazz, not offbeats. Okay, starting from bar C, bar 41, basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. Hear it in your head. Hear the notes in your head. Paul, here we go. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Nice. Beautiful. And off. 3, 4, 1. So much better. 2 tenors only, and everybody. Off, off. Now, yes, it was our second time going through this, but this is the principle that drives me at BCCO, is that if we choose to ignore that voice in our head and just take that little step forward to say, I'm just going to go for it. And everybody does that tiny little step forward. There's this magical thing that happens where it suddenly becomes 1,000 times better. Your little bit to say, I'm just going to go for it, even if I squawk and hit a completely different wrong note. I do that all the time. But that little bit of risk that we take is exponentially amplified by all of us together. And that's what makes singing together so amazing, is that those little steps to say, I'm going to join the group, makes us sound 1,000 times better. Not only was it musical and smooth, but the notes suddenly were like, again, 1,000 times better. So that's the type of thing that we want to build back in, is that idea that this is a safe space for us to make mistakes, because we're in rehearsal. Even in the concert, if we make mistakes, but we do it with gusto and energy. That's why Rachmaninoff, Bernstein, their recordings are not pristine. Rachmaninoff hits wrong notes all the time, but we don't listen to Rachmaninoff because it's like every single perfect right note. It's because the musicality is so amazing. We listen to Bernstein because his energy is so infectious that it's just so much fun. And sometimes he says it's unbalanced. Sometimes it doesn't line up, but that's not the point. It's musical. So this little idea of ours, the heart of what BCCO is about, is that wherever we are, if we take a step of risk all together, suddenly we have this beautiful musical performances. So let's go back to bar 29. Remember, this is describing the idyllic life of the gods. And so we're trying to get this calm, serene, beautiful sound. It's not lifeless or slow. It has to have a sort of a breath to it. So altos are going to start us off, and then all 4 voice parts start together. When we get to the part where we just rehearse at rehearsal C, we have this nice harmony change that's going to happen a couple times. So we have 3 parts: alto version, SATB version, and then change of chord and color. Paul, do you mind playing from bar 27?
Not at all.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3. Get ready. Altos. 2, and breathe. Everybody. Breath. Sustain and off. Get ready. 1, 2, and cool chord change. And nice and smooth. Two and 3. And off. 3, 4. Breathe. Two, 3. Tenors come in before everybody else. And everybody. Reading the next section, and 1. Sopranos, everybody. 2. And 3. And 3. Bases change now, and then tenors, and end right there. Yeah, see, the difference that we hear on our side is that all of a sudden the tone is what we're looking for. We never sacrifice the way you sing just because we're starting to learn the notes. And that is an important part to practice. Remember that adage, practice makes permanent, right? It doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And the more, even when we're sight singing, the more when we're getting to know the notes, that we have the right way of singing this legato together, it makes it just beautiful. Now, of course, we were still searching for some of the notes. That's perfectly fine. This is literally your first time through it. But getting that color was really, really beautiful. Now, what I want to do is look at bar 47, tenors and bases with a pickup from the tenors. If you don't have the bar numbers, this is 4 bars with pickup before rehearsal D for Dvorak. I was going to say delta, but sounds terrible. 4 bars before Dvorak. So tenors. So tenors, D suspends over the basses C. Let's try that. Paul, you can play with us. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. So on 3, tenors take a breath, and then, of course, basses take a breath 1 beat later. Here we go.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Basses. Beautiful. That was fantastic. That was excellent. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add the sopranos, who against the tenors D and against the basses C, who are against the tenor basses C, they sing in E flat. So you have those 3 notes clashing together. It's so beautiful. Let's try that. Without altos, we have tenors, sopranos, and basses. Excellent. 1, 2, tenors, breathe. Sopranos, basses. Yeah. Now, when we have this, what we call the suspension tenors, you usually push a little bit on the note that clashes. So it's like you crescendo, decrescendo. Sopranos, excellent. Altos, let's have you join in. But what I want to hear is a suspension between the sopranos and the altos this time. If I start from bar 47, and then sopranos and altos, you hear that? So the top voice doesn't have the suspension. The alto line has the suspension. And altos, just like the tenors did, you want to push into that. So when it relaxes into the note it resolves to, it's beautiful. Okay. Everybody, all 4 voice parts starting bar 47 with pickup. Sorry, Paul. We played it at the same time. Okay. Tenors get ready to come in, and then everybody else the beat later. 1, 2, 3. That's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, can we do the section right before that? Bar 46. Okay. So we're going to start just on the downbeat. Paul's going to play the orchestra on the downbeat, but don't sing until the second beat where you're supposed to come in. Ready? Go. 3, 4, 1. Two, 3. Repeat and go again. Beautiful. Excellent. So altos, bar 51. Can you make sure you write an arrow for that half note that says you don't stop singing until the third beat? Because we want to make sure that all the other voice parts resolve to their chord and we hear that beautiful chord at the end. It's not complete without you. So the alto is really important. Now, bar 45. It's actually bar 45. Do you see the crescendo, decrescendo there? See if we can get that to be like almost like a genuflect, a very nice bow. Let's do the same thing again. I'll give you 3, 4. Paul will come in on the downbeat, and then everybody else sings after that. 3, 4, go. Yes, excellent. Now remember, Paul was actually playing the orchestra part, so don't let him fool you. You know what the rhythm is. You know your crescendo, decrescendo. You do your job. Paul does his job. Let's do it together. 3, 4, 1. Excellent. Now, tenors, when you come in after them, can you make sure that that note that you come in on, that D on bar 46, is nice and clean and a little bit, the tiniest bit louder than what happens before, because we want to make sure that the audience knows that is definitively not a mistake. It's the tenors grabbing a little bit of attention, as tenors are wont to do. So let's start again, bar 45 into bar 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, D. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 1. Beautiful. 2, 3, tenors. Nice. Beautiful altos. And breathe. Beautiful. Oh, let's get that last chord. So it ends in a chord that doesn't quite resolve, but that's fine. So we're going to sing bar 51, the downbeat and second beat. So just bar 51. So these are the notes. Okay, ready? 3, 4. Yeah, almost. So let's just hear basses and tenors. It's very far apart, so it's a little hard to tune, but try to listen to the people around you and the piano. 3, 4. Yeah, so it's a little quicker. Do, do, just on bar 51. And then sopranos and altos join us. Okay, 3, 4. That's it. Can we cut off together too? So 1, off. Here we go. 3, 4. Nice. And 1. Yeah, that's beautiful. So that breath should feel like the harmony there. Do you feel that beautiful B flat major chord? So you're going to sing and breathe on that too. Okay, that's great. Now, again, this section is one of usually musicologists say that there's 3 sections in this, but it doesn't quite make sense. There's actually 4 sections. The first section is a cappella. The second section is what we're just rehearsing now. That's the beauty of the gods, tranquility and peacefulness. We haven't looked at when we get to bar 104 or page 13 or the Allegro, whatever we're looking at. And this is when we talk about how dire and terrible things are on earth, right? Given of kindness. Okay, so we haven't looked at the other part. And the fourth part, as we talked about in the introduction, is only instrumental. That's when there's optimism and hope that whatever happened here is on earth will actually find peace again. And Brahms's philosophy and view on life changed for us. So we're going to be looking at the 2 different parts of this. The first part that we looked at has to do with the legato, voice, tone, and sustain. The second part, which is the faster part we're going to look at, is going to be about precision and then strength without straining. We want to create strength without feeling like we're losing our voice or straining with our voice. So work on that. We will look at a little bit of that next week. And of course, we'll continue learning what we did before. But I want to make sure that we still have time to look at the Mendelssohn, Die erste Walpurgisnacht. And so what I want you to do is we're going to look at the second chorus. Where is this? Oh, it's actually, sorry, the first. And so this is in this is page 25. And this is in number 1, but at rehearsal A, bar 127. So there's a lot of things. Page 25, bar 127 in big number 1. And then the same thing, we can sing it on da, but okay, let's try this. And again, we didn't even listen to a recording of this section, so this is ultra sight reading. The only time you'll have heard it is just when we did it now, unless you've sung this before or have listened to this before. But 127, Paul, if you don't mind playing the orchestra parts, sorry, the choral parts, unless of course you're not singing, then play the orchestra parts.
Sure.
Okay, so about that fast, we're gonna go in half beat count. So it's like 1, 2, 1, da, da, da. Okay. Here we go. Basses, bass, baritones, tenors. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 1. And then sopranos, altos can come in right now. And breath. One, breath. Breath. And breath. 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 Not bad, not bad. So let's take your pencils and write in a ton of things.
I wasn't clear. We don't have measure numbers. I wasn't the only one who didn't know where we were.
So I'm going off of this edition, the Carus. And so what might be good is
PDF has
have
no
rehearsal
numbers.
letters.
The PDF has no numbers or
Sure, it
letters,
goes on that.
unfortunately.
It's bar 20 or page 22 middle system is D.
On the PDF?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you want to see die Flamme lodere durch den Rauch.
Great. Okay.
Great. Yeah. And so for these, what I'll try to do is, so we're not trying to number all of the entire things, I'll tell you which choruses we'll look on. So at least for those, we can write in bar numbers or whatnot. But if you have time, yeah, definitely do most that you can. But we're going to start right there, die Flamme. And so the same thing, I want you to write in some breaths. So start with me at the tenor and bass entrance, die Flamme lodere durch den Rauch. Then the sopranos and altos come in, die Flamme lodere durch den Rauch. And then this whole note tied to a half note, we're gonna breathe on the tied note. So if you have bar numbers, it's bar 135, the downbeat. If you don't, it's the right before you sing Z, you're gonna take a breath. Rauch, Z, Lord. Okay. And then on where do you see the SF where you say Al Vater, a little bit down, you have Begeht den alten heiligen Brauch. On Brauch, you're going to take a breath. So bar 140, 1, 2, 3, bar 143 if you have bar numbers, or the bar before the SF, excuse me, where it says Alfata, you're going to take a breath right before that. So again, it's going to sound, if I'm starting from Begate, it sounds. Breath. Enough. And then you have 3 enoughs, right? And so on bar 153, right before the text, so wird das Herz, can you put a breath? So on bar 153, where it's a whole note now, can you make it a half note with a breath before so wird das Herz? Now, if you are an alto, tenor, or bass on bar 155, so wird das Herz, breath. So 154, breath. Okay, nice and sustained there. And that'll be enough for our notes now. So we'll do this again, just a reminder next week. So for those that don't have the bar numbers or are having difficulty finding where we are, don't worry, it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out. But what I'd love to do is with Paul, maybe for the last thing we do, is to sing through this section again. So Paul, if I remember correctly, it's page, if you don't have the bar numbers, it's page 22 in the middle of the system. If you do have the bar numbers, because you're looking at the Cadus edition, this blue one that looks black in this picture, then it is page 25, bottom system. And then as noted in the chat, Christian says they're going to prepare measure numbers for the PDF score next week. So let's read through again. And I want you to just feel like you go for it. If you sing some wrong notes, that's fine. Not necessarily talking about volume, but just more, yeah, I'm going to try to figure out what that weird chord is and sing one of the notes in that chord. So Paul, I'm going to give you 1, 2, breath. And if you can play on the downbeat so we have it together. Okay, here we go. Starting from the beginning of Diaphragms, but singing da, okay? Basses, other basses, and tenors. 1, 2, Paul. And breath. Nice. Breath. Breath. Off and off. Breath. Breath. Not bad. Not bad at all. Now, this is, again, music that is unfamiliar to us, but we are going to get very familiar with. So what I'd love to do is, sorry, talk a little bit about what our potential plan is. I might hand it over to Christian to talk about this, but is it tomorrow, Christian?
Yes.
So tomorrow, there is a group of people that are going to St. John's to actually test out what it might be like to sing in small groups there, to see what airflow might be like or whatnot. Because this work especially falls into soprano alto often only and tenor bass often only. And there are many sections of both works where it would behoove us to actually focus on certain voice parts in separate sectionals. And if we can do that in person at St. John's, then that's what they're testing tomorrow. So next week for the Mendelssohn, we're going to be looking at chorus number 1, exactly where we were. I would listen to a recording of it. There's some really great ones. And I would listen to the soprano alto section as well as the section that we just looked at before. It's not very long, but it tends to be a little bit confusing if you're what's it called? Thinking of it in 4, it's really in half notes, not quarter notes for the section that we're just looking at. And then of course, in the Brahms, we're going to be continuing the section that we looked at, but we're also going to look at the beginning of the Allegro. So if you have the music that has the page numbers and the bar numbers, we're looking at page 14. So whatever we just did in rehearsal plus page 14, and we're going to start working our way through it and learning notes and starting putting things together with detail. And again, this is different than our previous Zoom rehearsals because for those, if you didn't quite get the notes, we just kind of like moved on. But this one, our goal is to make everybody feel comfortable and feel like they know the music and feel like they can sing it with comfort and intent. So I hope you are excited as I am, because we are very excited to be working towards performing this piece and very excited about our next steps. So both Brahms and Mendelssohn next week. And of course, Carrie will be starting us off with vocalizations and getting our bodies ready again. So thank you everybody on the tech team. I know that it's very, very difficult. It requires a lot of detail and adjusting and whatnot. So we did have a couple of hiccups, but they're absolutely fantastic and have been working their tails off, making everything work as best as they can. And of course, thank you, Paul, for our wonderful rehearsal. And of course, Carrie, who's not here anymore, but we will see you all next week, unless Christian has something to say. Because he's
on my mic. Yeah, we could. Malone Johnson asked.
Maybe not. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Then we will see everybody next week. Okay.
Great.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good
Good
night.
Jack trip.
That was lots of fun.
Thank you all. Yeah. Hi, Ann. Hi, Nora. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Adios, amigos.
Adios, pues.
Dobbs.
Hi.
You feeling better?
Yep.
Oh, I'm so happy. Cool. Great. Okay, time to eat.
Anybody else have a question about the password? Is Alice still on?
Yes, can you share the password?
Hi, yeah, I'm still here.